good afternoon or good morning, depends on where you are. This is our next seminar of the series on the 5G seminar. As you know, for the participants of the course, these seminars are connected to our training on 5G that is running in these weeks. But as you know, this webinar is also open to participation to other participants. The theme of today is the convergence between fixed and mobile, new challenges ahead. And very pleased to have a panel of participants in which we have Serafino Abate of Copenhagen Economics will chair the webinar, and the participant will be Philippe Lefebvre from the European Commission DG Connect, Attilio Somma from Telecom Italia, and Simon Ford from CF Associates. And they will discuss the trends of the convergence of technology, their importance, their different aspects, geographic, economic, technical, regulatory, and how we have to look at the evolution of these technologies in the next months and maybe years. And however, the convergence of fixed and mobile is a very important phenomenon. I'm very pleased to give the floor to Serafino Abate that will run the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pierluigi. Welcome to all our participants. Thanks to Pierluigi and to the lovely team of the Florence School of Regulation for the invitation today to share a very interesting panel. I think convergence is certainly fixed mobile convergence with 5G is really a theme that I think is super important and can be, as we will hear later, the basis for new innovation and business models. I will briefly just a couple of things which are like administration today. So we will start. I'll do a short presentation and then I will leave the floor to our three speakers today. We have Simon, Philippe, and Attilio, and we hear different perspective on convergence. After that, we will have a Q&A from myself for the speakers, and we will keep track of all the questions that the audience, all the participants can put through whenever they want in the chat. Please write your questions only in the chat and do not raise your hand. We will keep track of all the questions, and at the end of the presentations, I will read them in the order they come in for our speakers to take up. And that hopefully will conclude what should be a very interesting 1 hour. Briefly on the theme of today, when I think about convergence, so I remember it's one of these words that's probably as old as the word technology in a way, because since we've seen, particularly in the last 20 years, convergence of different networks technologies has become a key feature of the development of the electronic communication and digital space. We have seen in the past convergence between broadband and narrowband networks. We have seen the convergence of IT and telecoms, thanks to the softwareization and the computerization of network function. And we are seeing the convergence of broadcasting and telecoms, thanks to the digitization of content and distribution from traditional broadcasting platform moving to internet-based platform. What all these have in common in my mind and what they have brought to where we are today is they've incredibly lowered, they've increased the economies of scope, giving the ability of technological development to affect more and more of different service areas and markets. And this is very important because the more you can do that, the more scope you can exploit, the more scale you can exploit in digital markets, the greater the cost reduction, the better the prices, but crucially, new business model and innovation. And today we will hear how fixed mobile convergence and 5G can really bring this last aspect together. So I'm not going to talk a lot more because I think we have very interesting speakers to listen to, starting with Simon, which among many, I think, very rich curriculum, is certainly a person that has been working with the convergence concept and has also co-authored an important report for the Commission on the topic. So I leave the floor to Simon to start the round of our speakers. Please, Simon.
Okay, perhaps I can put up some slides. Thank you. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here before you today. What I want to look at is FMC, fixed and mobile convergence, really from the point of view of denser networks, 5G networks especially. And what we have been doing very quickly is to cover quite a vast field in the work that we've done for the Commission and since, with 5G networks, looking at the business models and especially the costs of putting out 5G. It's going to work. No, it doesn't seem to change the, I'm not sure what's happened there, but I don't seem to be able to get our thing to move. What I'll do is I'll just speak then. Okay, I think there's several FMC questions and answers. The big problem with convergence between fixed and mobile in times possibly of the pandemic is that we're very interested in much more dense use of traffic to the home, to the and far less to the offices. And so the key points to consider on the minimum benefits and limits of FMC is, has the pandemic impacted public and private plans? And the points to consider here, I think, is the real business case for 5G. With FMC, we see that the cost of infrastructure and the density of deployment is probably going to rise as demand rises for services. And so there is a real business case there for FMC as a way of cutting infrastructure costs. In other words, what we're doing is we're using the existing infrastructure as much as possible, because the largest cost factor in 5G networks, from what we've been seeing recently, is the cost of backhaul. And so we're very interested in moving towards reuse of existing infrastructure. And if only this button would work. Ah, it has. Maybe I was pushing it too hard. And if I can take out all of these, that's good. So the real business case is really in infrastructure cost cutting. And there is a real 5G business model that we've seen taking off in the USA over the last few years. Basically, it's mobile broadband for consumers. That demands very good bandwidth on the backhaul, and especially for SVOD, streaming video on demand entertainment, which is going to drive FMC and also FWA, fixed wireless access, for consumer demand. So our scenarios of deployment are very much towards FMC infrastructures. And the key question, I think, if we are going to act as we are at the moment, today I'm in a lockdown situation in the UK, which is a bit of a problem because I have to get a birthday cake for my wife, but I'm not quite sure whether I can get there or I shall be arrested. So we'll see how that happens later today. But basically, we're looking at the ideas of fixed wireless access for consumer demand, especially in this current densification era of COVID-19. So the scenarios of deployment of FMC infrastructures must demand, will fixed wireless access in the future exceed mobile? And that's a very interesting question, because there are problems such as ferroconcrete structure penetration by higher frequencies. so that for this to happen, we would probably not exceed 3 gigahertz. We would have to go lower. Something else I want to talk about quite a lot, but very briefly, is quality measures for FMC networks, what we call KQIs in our report for the Commission, key quality indicators. And we'll go into those very quickly, as long as this switch works. The choice of services for fixed, including fixed wireless access, for mobile evolution of fixed wire with wireline, is a case of optimization. In other words, we have fixed mobile substitution, which we look at quite closely and see what substitute for what. The idea of having a fiber optic broadband network, which then has radio tails, is very attractive as long as we can get building penetration, because we've got much lower cost for the last 100 meters, the last kilometer, if we can use radio. I think COVID effects, therefore, are going to drive fixed wireless access, but problems of indoor penetration, as I said, at the higher gigahertz may knock out anything above 3 gigahertz. So what we're interested in is mixing and matching FMC enablers with new lower cost 5G from the SMEs who are thinking about going into Open RAN for 5G, so that suppliers can provide much more equipment at lower cost. And certainly most of the MNOs, the mobile network operators, are very interested in the Open RAN option. So what we're looking at is, for densification, is much more complex street furniture for outside plant to serve multiple small cell technologies, not just 5G. We will have legacy technologies and advancing technologies. So we will have a non-standalone 5G for small cells. So the NS standard from 3GPP is very interesting for this, because we can reuse existing fiber usually for LTE-A, so we can use the previous generation's infrastructure. So what we're looking at here is a fairly complex model of what we can expect in the future. It's heterogeneous, and we will be using various technologies for backhaul and for fixed mobile convergence. And this is the way in which we would see this happening. If we actually look at the dimensions of the FMC market, we see the infrastructure that we've spoken about, we see the service side, and we see a market side. Dimensions, therefore, are quite complex. I won't go into them, but we're looking at infrastructure technology, delivery networks, network costs. We're looking at the radio range as the basic parameter here. On the service side, we have to look at the basic offerings in voice, broadband, GPS, usage modes, service delivery modes. And we're also thinking about the market in terms of infrastructure, the services market, and the market setting. Also, what we will be looking at the market case is whether there will be separation of markets. In other words, an infrastructure market that serves several radio networks, RANs, radio area networks, so that the basic infrastructure could be a separation, and there could be different markets at different levels. In other words, a backhaul market and a RAN market. And that would be very interesting to see, especially as edge computing for SVOD and for other areas takes off quickly. So one of the other areas I mentioned very quickly in the opening slide was the ideas of reliability. And what we looked at in our work for the Commission was to see that if we do go for these kinds of mixed radio and fixed networks, we have to be very careful about what we're talking about in terms of reliability. And so it's not just basic transport, it's not just the communications session, which we're having interesting things happening. It's also the media connection, in other words, audio quality and video quality, and also real world areas, constraints such as security and privacy, which are getting more and more important. The way in which we handle that comes down to the basic user experience, UX. And all of these ideas of accessibility for those who are handicapped or aging, the health, RF radiation, energy footprints, these kinds of real world factors must be taken into what is reliability in the future in terms of consistency, repeatability, resilience, and interconnection. So we see 5 scenarios, which I'm not going to go into, over the next 20 or 30 years for the evolution of fixed mobile convergence. So we start with popular entertainment, which rules the web. We go into IoT platforms for various industry drives. We expect to see an internet radio world in the future. And we also expect smart cities to become centers of FMC. In a final scenario, we're looking at linked local communities. With COVID, we see in many countries that the attraction of the city center has reduced. And what we expect to see is something that we've done in various studies up to 30 years ago, looking at the alternative to suburbia, the alternative to urbania, which is telecomia, we call it. In other words, that you work wherever you want to, and that's dictated by the price of real estate. And so we can reuse the results that we have of this kind of technology in living where we want to and working where we can, such that we spread work across provinces which perhaps have never been inhabited for a few hundred years or something. So the real business case for the short term, as I say, it's fixed wireless access. I see this in the USA very much so. And that is all. Thank you very much. And I hand over now back to you.
Thank you very much, Simon. And very timely. We were just about to send you a reminder for the timing. I think
I can see it. I can see it.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
Mind. Thank you very much. Super interesting. I've noted down a couple of questions that we can keep on the back burner for later.
Yeah.
We are now going to Philippe. Philippe
Great.
From DigiConnect, which will give us, Philippe has a great experience in the technology and also the policy, obviously. So give us the institution kind of like, and his view on fixed mobile convergence and 5G. Thank you.
Thank you, Serafino. This is a flattering introduction. Thank you for that. I'm also grateful to Simon to have set the technical landscape, because I can then now refer to bits and pieces along my short introduction. Let me say, first of all, I mean, it's customary to say that convergence is an old concept. I remember it dates back from the beginning of my career. I remember in '93 an article in Harvard Business Review called Managing the Market Space, where the ultimate example of convergence in the telecom sector was to replace an answering machine with a voicemail subscription. So that's a long way. But okay, now we are talking about fixed mobile convergence. I go back to the subject, and I would say that from a policy making perspective, we are less interested in the technical efficiency and in the technical convergence itself. We look more at the user benefit, the societal benefits of such convergence, of fixed wireless convergence. And from that viewpoint, I have to refer to you to a fundamental shift in the last regulatory framework that is being put into place, where traditionally we had 3 objectives. One was to preserve competition, the internal market was number 2, and then the consumer or the user interest were 3, the third objective. But now we have added one more objective, which is about which is a connectivity objective, which is oriented more to the outcome rather than to the substance. And this is around the concept of very high capacity networks that we would like to see quickly roll out in Europe. So this concept has the merit compared to the old NGA concept that we had in regulation to be much more precise while being still technology neutral. It's precise because it says explicitly that we are aiming at networks that have the quality basically of a fiber network to this distribution point. And even more precisely in the regulation itself, it says that it has to have a download capacity of 100 megabits per second, extendable or upgradable to 1 gigabit. But also in the context of which is a secondary principle of technology neutrality, there is also an explicit reference to the wireless networks. I will not bother you with the full text, but it says something like other technology and transmission media should not be excluded where they compare with that baseline scenario in terms of their capabilities. And then there is a reference to air interfaces and so on. So obviously wireless is part of it. Now also the code as, through the code we could mandate BEREC to go one step further. Now BEREC has adopted on the 6th of October these guidelines. So it's a very high capacity network guidelines, which are even more precise because they give you 4 scenarios where, 5 scenarios, I believe, where these networks must fit to be eligible from a regulatory viewpoint. And this has an importance from a competition viewpoint. What can be considered as a VHCN, as a very high capacity network. So you see, I think we have the last months or 1 or 2 years gone a lot, we've covered a lot of ground towards the, having a good regulatory incentives for further convergence. Yes, my personal observation is that fixed wireless convergence is unavoidable on the long term. Today, networks are separated mainly for business reasons because mobile operators have developed separately from fixed operators. But on the long term, it's a bit like, I tried, when I was thinking of this introduction, I was trying to be creative, a bit like cold and hot water. Why would you separate cold and hot water from this, the water spring all down as perfectly illustrated by Simon, there is a lot of synergies and economies to be gained by combining fixed and wireless up to the last point in the distribution, of course. I think that Simon was rightfully pointed to the quality of service, because the fact that no operators are engaged in providing more data on quality of service. Also, that's also part of the regulation, because you know that the electronic communication code foresees that operators have to provide more transparent data to consumers so that they know what they are buying. Once we have such data for mobile network with a certain level of first detail and granularity, but also when they become, when these data are becoming very satisfactory as a substitute to fixed line, we will see more use of it. I think there is also strong market development at the moment. Of course, there is still this multiple play trend among operators, and so consumers like these products very much. And of course, this triggers more mergers and alliance between fixed and mobile operators to be able to deliver this multiple play offers. And so we are going to end up with more integrated operators even than today. But also, I would say, with the advent of the vertical industries in 5G, that could also be a powerful driver, because, for example, you could imagine that for many of these professional services, new billing models could be introduced. For example, you may as a user only buy the service, and it's the service provider that would enter into contract with the communications operator to deliver the service over the air, so or over networks, whatever it's fixed or wireless. So basically you would delegate the negotiation and the details of the communication aspect to your service provider, be it, for example, a automated car service, or already you have such model. For example, Google Fi today is a bit this model. You subcontract to Google the duty to negotiate with operators, but also to combine fixed mobile Wi-Fi and other modes of communications. So the market is moving very fast. I heard one last example, and that I will be close to my conclusion. One last example, I heard that the rumor in Silicon Valley is that Apple, in future products, maybe not in 2-3 months, but in a year or so, may ditch Wi-Fi on MacBooks. That's like they ditched, floppy disk very early, too early, some people said, or they ditched the jack interface for headsets. They could replace the Wi-Fi with 5G, 6G, as the rumor carries the message now. So we'll see if this is realistic. But you may see that with Open RAN also, that more and more like light equipment, like indoor routers that would do Wi-Fi and 5G, and so. I mean, that's the future is open, but I'm less qualified. Just reporting what I hear from my standpoint here. More generally, I think that OTT will be the biggest potential to drive the further convergence and to force it upon operators in some cases because of their economic weight. And by extension, I include the vertical industries, as I said. So two very small point, important point, but briefly before I close. I agree with Simon that convergence, broadcasting, and telecom is important. I think we have missed this opportunity. It could have occurred earlier. There is no reason then, when we have a worldwide, wireless internet network being deployed on the basis of 5G, there is still the exception of multiplexes for broadcasting. Don't take me wrong. I don't want to undermine the importance of broadcasting. I just think that we need to help this industry to fold in the new world as fast as possible and defending their interest. And finally, from inside the Commission, I would like to mention that we have had, I think it's public knowledge, it's not confidential, sometimes tension between DG Connect and DG Competition on the way we look at fixed, especially wireless networks, as a substitute to fixed connections. And I must say that the last months, my experience that we have gone a long way. We have discussions now how to better implement this VHCN equivalence concept into the way we approach state aid case and the way we approach market failures and so on. So I'm very optimistic on that front. And that will probably increase in importance because also 5G networks are becoming platform, multi-application platforms. So there is a link with the ongoing work, on the platform economy and the regulation which is being prepared for the platforms. So maybe we can draw a parallel there, and we'll maybe learn from other sectors. So you see, there is a convergence also within the Commission, within service of the Commission. I conclude here and say that I also look to the good convergence with my fellow panelists in the next discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philippe. Very interesting, and I think good sort of overview of all the Commission initiative and what it means, and the Commission views on the evolution of fixed mobile convergence. Attilio, over to you now for the commercial perspective and team. Yeah, thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks, and thanks for the invitation. I'm Attilio Somma, responsible for partnership alliances in TIM, Telecom Italia Group. And I'll try to give you an overview about 5G and fixed mobile convergence from customer perspective, from the operator perspective. We are an incumbent operator, and so I'll try to give you a full roadmap of what we are doing and what we are expecting in terms of the technology, but essentially in terms of market. So, Andrea, please, can... So this is the situation. I want to start with giving you a view of the Italian market. If we look at this slide, we can see that the technological wave that we have experienced from 2008, 2G, 3G, 4G, create a disruption of value in terms of market in Italy. Now, it's not good to start with this view, but this is the reality. So operators continue to invest in network and platform with life cycle of technology that were shorter and shorter. And if you look at the telco figure in Italy, but this is common in many countries in Europe, you can see that revenues, EBITDA and EBITDA capex are going down very, very rapidly. So the key message is that we invest, we maintain the level of investment, but we had no opportunity to collect real value from all the effort that we make on the market. And the value was driven by other players like OTT, ICT player, or the other that were on our network. So why 5G and fixed mobile convergence? Because we think that 5G is a real driver for this, can be a turning point in Italy and in Europe. Because we are moving to a complete new concept, as Philippe said. For us, 5G is not just technology, it's a platform where we are going to create an ecosystem of partners to deploy business case, vertical use case to be implemented. And so if you look at the right part of the slide, you can see that we will move more and more from the infrastructure approach to platform and application and services approach. We have seen 2 or 3 days ago another study about the impact and benefit in terms of 5G in Europe. Analysis Maison projected that in 2025 and 25, 5G can create benefit in Europe for more than 210 billion euros. And for Italy, it's about 14. And so where we can find this kind of benefit are in the use cases that for citizen, for vertical, for industry, we can try to put in our platform. So this is the picture on which we start. We can move now to what we have done as a process, as team, to move to 5G. 5G is really a disruptive change that we had as telco operator. And so we start in Italy in 2016 with the program that was called 5G for Italy, launched with Ericsson, because we understood that first of all, before experimentation, we need to educate the market and to bring different vertical, different industry abroad to make them understand which will be the impact of the classical characteristic of 5G. So low latency, speed, million density of IoT device that can be connected. So the first phase was educate the market. Then we moved to the experimentation where we can where we address all technical deployment and business use cases. And you see in the slide, we elected some city, Turin, San Marino, and the south of Italy as the hub where we experienced more than 55 use cases with partners. I stress this concept because for us, it was a moment to test the technical performance of 5G. But it was the first phase in which we create live the first use cases from AR, VR, from e-health, from cloud robotics, with some partners, industrial partners that were interested in exploiting the opportunity. Then we moved to the bid, and we, as team, we had the opportunity, but also the constraint, we can say, for the huge investment, to invest more than 2.4 billion euros to ensure the best portfolio of frequencies in Italy on the 3 bands, so 3.6, 3.8, where we have 80 megahertz, the 10 megahertz, and the 200 megahertz bandwidth for vertical needs. And then we launch in July 2019 at the end the 5G, starting from the business side and then moving to consumer. If we move to what is really important for a telco operator, and this is the view, the strategic view of TIM, where you have frequencies and you need to create the right mix between coverage and frequencies, is how to address the different vertical for business and consumer. And here you can see that moving from the left part of the slide, where we have the low frequency, so the 700 megahertz, and that create big coverage, and going to the other part, we are deploying these use cases with the big industrial partner, starting from automotive, smart agriculture, health, media entertainment, manufacturing, and then moving to fixed wireless access to complete our offering on the fiber and FTTH cab. So it's very important for us to make live this kind of vertical, and we have also changed our organization to address at the best this vertical with our sales force. Last slide, no, the other slide. What we lived, what we experienced in the pandemic emergency. These are some figures that we had in TIM, the impact on the network, mobile and fixed, and the strong resilience that we experience on our network. You can see fixed data traffic increased in the period of lockdown from March to May from more than 80%. The mobile data traffic grew from 30–40%. The use of a new platform like collaboration platform, unified communication platform had an 11 for average usage. And on the physical channel, we had obviously a strong decrease in our shops, in our sales. This was, as for all of the operators, a great big breakthrough and a big push to move to digital transformation. So in these 5 months, we accelerated all the programs for e-commerce and for a digital platform to give the self-caring to our customers. We increased the portfolio of ICT services that can be accessed directly, and we moved very, very quickly to create and to reinforce our convergent offering. So also in this case, the mix of fixed and mobile for the incumbent operator on which build the new convergence proposition was really crucial to make a good footprint on the market. What we are doing, so in terms of convergence, and how we are accelerating also for the emergency pandemic. We have created, everybody talks of convergence, but we started in the past, but now we have a clear proposition on the market that moves from combining fixed and mobile in terms of a platform and in terms of billing. So every customer from TIM had the opportunity to add 6 mobile lines to its fixed proposition, having a unique billing, a unique point of entrance for digital self-caring. So enjoying all the benefits from the fixed and mobile convergence. But on this layer, on this technological connectivity layer, the proposal that we are pushing is how to engage the customer needs in terms of, first of all, video streaming and entertainment. We have a super broker, we can say, model, where in our platform, Convergent platform, we have all the big player of entertainment. So from Disney Plus, we have an exclusive with them, Netflix, Sky, and all the other. And they can enjoy it from set-top box at home, but also in mobility with the continuity of services. Then we have the smart home and security, that for us is another important piece of the quadruple play. And we have launched with Google a strong partnership in order to have the IoT focusing on surveillance and the health inside at home. And then the third pillar of our strategy of convergence is online gaming. We have seen and experienced in these months a strong growth in terms of usage of cloud gaming. And so we are moving with the same approach on the entertainment on this area. So we look at the convergence and at 5G like the real driver for our business model proposition, and we are there trying to exploit and to serve at best our customer, giving them all the opportunities of technology, also where there is a digital divide. You know that unfortunately Italy is not well positioned in terms of DESI ranking, 25 in Europe. So we are accelerating to cover all the digital divided area, starting from small municipalities, and with a very strong roadmap that we will bring broadband everywhere with fixed wireless access or with the fiber FTTC or FTTH cap. Thanks. This is a complete overview, ready for any questions.
Thank you very much, Attilio. Very, very interesting. And I'll come back. I noted down a couple of things and I'll come back to you and the other speakers with question. I'm looking now, we've had a question in the chat. So we will start with that if it's okay with the speakers. And then I noted down a couple of more questions. The question from Federica Loffredo: which could be the strategy that traditional broadcasters should take to compete with OTT in this convergent world? So what does it mean, convergent in effect for broadcasters? I don't know who wants to start. Simon?
Yeah, sure. I have to admit that I have family in this area of media and media content. I think the idea that the broadcaster is out of this is somewhat wrong. The only idea that is there is, I think there are two. One is, what media do you broadcast over? That just has to extend. And so what you're looking at are negotiations. The other thing is that you might get bought, as AT&T has been buying things like DirecTV, Time Warner, Turner, so that there are two things here. One is the distribution network, and the second thing is content. And we see here in the UK, for instance, that the BBC is very strong in content and is increasing. And so I think the broadcasters' strategy in the future might be twofold. One is to sign agreements with different distribution networks, shall we say, and secondly, to build their own content, which everyone is trying to do, of course. I mean, but you know, that's the world we live in. So there isn't any choice here. And from what I see, you know, whether it's at the level of gaming, or if it's children's programming with Cartoon Network, if it's news with CNN, that kind of content, especially today for CNN with Biden, is going to be at a premium. And so what we need to do if we're a broadcaster is to move in both of those directions. The other thing is, you might want to look at your share price and see, do you want to get bought or do you want to go out and buy? Because that's the key point. Cheers. I think that's about it for me.
Thanks, Simon. Philippe, Attilio?
This is more, I think, a question for market practitioner than for the commission. What I can say is that we have understood that for the broadcaster to stick to the terrestrial infrastructure was more of a bargaining chip in many markets, maybe not in Italy, where it's still very important. But in many markets, let's take Germany, it allows you to negotiate your place on the IPTV and so on. There were early concerns that broadcaster might lose their prominent place, the local one, on the program grid. But I think this fear is disappearing now. We see that there are other ways, and consumers have packaged where the local channels are listed by popularity, so that they keep their prominent place from a visibility viewpoint. So I don't think it's. But again, that's from a policymaker. We see broadcaster more as content providers, and I think it's more on the technical side and on the telecom operator side that efforts can be done now to rationalize the distribution. For example, I think it's a bit disappointing that in the 5G standards, the ability to broadcast, the broadcasting functionality is not better integrated yet. I think it will come, but the current release do not allow really cost-efficient substitute, if I understand. So that's I think it's a missed opportunity, but it's a question of time.
Thank you. Attilio?
Yes, from my side, as already highlighted in the presentation, I am obviously proposing the position of TIM, because you know that some other operators have a different strategy. They are producing content, they are competing now also with the content provider, broadcaster, and other. From TIM side, we have a complete different view. We have a network, we have the fixed mobile network, we have a strong presidium at home, very, very strong, with not only the router, but also the set-top box. We create a model that is the super aggregator model, where we want to host everybody who wants to use our channel to reach in the right way the customer, the big customer base of Telecom Italia. So we create also vertical proposal that can empower, like for Disney, but also from some broadcaster specifically, to push the bundle of fiber and some specific proposition of content. And the other area on which we try to support is that in many cases we have two advantages that we can give to the content of the broadcaster. First of all, we can create the service continuity between fixed, mobile, and all the devices that we manage in our portfolio. The second one, we can add, and we are trialing a lot of this case, interactivity on the content side. That is one of the key drivers also for advertising, so that the consumption of content can be enriched from interactivity and new business model, not only advertising, that can create value also for the broadcaster. So this is our proposal. Obviously, in the market, other operators choose to have other strategic proposition, a little bit, we can say, more competing with the content provider, the broadcaster. But in Italy, we think that the super aggregator model is the right one to propose.
Thank you, Attilio. No, very interesting response. I think there's another question now coming from the audience. You probably can see, how will the convergence of fixed and mobile affect the market definition, which is more of a policy question. If I can sort of like break it down, is really, how we're gonna see in effect the boundaries between voice fixed and voice mobile markets disappear. You mentioned the capacity of fixed wireless access, Simon, to provide a credible substitute to fiber in some parts. Attilio, you also illustrated the proposition that TIM has put together, and it seems to be very much independent of whether you're using your mobile or your fixed station or you are nomadic. Do you see that with 5G and convergence, we're really gonna see in the next, let's say, 5 years, the disappearance of traditional boundaries between fixed and mobile markets?
If you're asking me, absolutely, yes. But the only thing I would say is there may be the ideas of infrastructure, be it radio-based infrastructure, In other words, we're using line of sight microwave, or we're using new non-line of sight reflective technologies that have been around for some time, as well as cabled fiber optic cable, or perhaps reuse of copper where possible with new signal processing techniques. And there are, I have seen proposals for bundling all access, and then the radio part could be taken over by the large platform providers, the internet platform providers, and that they have tried this, going right down to the fixed infrastructure already. I think somebody like Google in San Francisco, but it hasn't really taken on. But what I can see in the future is there may be various people who looked after what's sometimes called outside plant, which is a very specialized kind of view of the market. And then you have other operators, and it may be that the platform operators will come in here and they would take over the radio distribution. And that's a fairly extreme view of the market, but it is seen actually in some BEREC documents of a separation of infrastructure provision and, shall we say, the last few kilometers distribution, which will be a radio tail of some form. It could be 5G, but it might be some other new technology, or an extension with Wi-Fi 6 and 7.
Attilio, Philippe?
From the regulator, if it seems to go into this direction, and if it's the case, of course, 5 regulated markets would shrink to 2, would be a big broadcasting and a big data/internet market, I mean connectivity market. That would simplify our life. But the first thing they would do is to turn to the consultants like Simon and ask them to analyze if there is really a collapse of the 2 markets. But yeah, it seems that quite likely that we will see that. Yeah.
We look forward to the contract.
Attilio?
I agree with Philippe and Simon. The trend is to go there. We are pushing to go there. The customer want this kind of a proposition and this kind of offering. One thing that is very important is to guarantee a simple and very rich user experience. For times, and maybe this is one of also the problem of some operators, we didn't succeed like the OTT to give the best experience and the simple touch, to access some complicated proposition. We are working a lot on this because is really the key. And so the portfolio of technology that we can put in place has to be completely agnostic to the customers that want just to move between one technology and the other, but with zero touch. So the importance is we are there. Is easy to create the platform to manage. The customer experience will be the key to guarantee the success on the market.
Thank you, Attilio. We have conscious of time now, so there are more questions, and I think we have the audience. Obviously, this is a reflection of suddenly the discussion is flaring up. I'm going to pick some of the questions now. They have different angles and pose them to each one of you as a kind of final round. So starting with Simon, there's a question around at the moment the mapping of infrastructure and services is for convergence. It's traditionally been kept separately, but in regulators and operators. And some suggest is this need to change, and how to get a unified view, and obviously better for everybody, for the market, for the policy.
Yes, well, this is the question for the regulator, that if you're going to bring a verticalization in, you have to be careful about SMP, significant market power. So that what you would be looking at if you have, for instance, BT providing content and everything else. In other words, we have this convergence, but it gives verticalization. You would have to be looking at competition. That is the key thing, and I think Philippe would agree with me that if you have actually a concentration of power, you have this problem of saying, how are you going to preserve competition? And what would be very interesting, the kind of thing we've been looking at in some things at the moment, is what are the scenarios for going forward with a concentration of power like this for a competitive market and for protecting the citizen, the consumer.
Thanks,
Yes.
Simon.
It's a difficult question. I would say, yeah, in general, verticalization creates a danger of concentration in general. But we also see the other trend now is that with virtualization, you may have a horizontal separation between these local provider of connectivity, whether it's wireless or fixed, and the upper layer, so the big virtual operator covering all the other layers. But again, as a policymaker, I'm not qualified to tell you where it will go. I think Attilio is probably better positioned.
Attilio?
No, for sure, the infrastructure that we are putting in place, to guarantee the link and the bridge between the service and the other, is driven by some key points. One is the virtualization and softwareization that can create a more easy packaging of the services, and we are going for sure there. The other one is the connectivity that we can manage directly linked to the application of the service that we are asking to. So if we look at what is going to be in the cloud and the edge cloud, that will be two key drivers for this item, we have seen that the global platform, also the upper scale, are trying to be connected in a very, very strong way with the connectivity as the one or the other that can guarantee the best quality of the service that you ask. This is something that we are putting in our infrastructure. From team side, we have a partnership with Google because we are creating a big company in Italy for the cloud and for the edge cloud, for the softwareization of the solution. And it's a key point on which all the big players from Cisco, Microsoft, and the other are going there. So I think this is a very crucial and important point that will give another push to the convergence.
Thanks, Attilio. Maybe we have time for one last question before closing. There was one question for the Commission, but everybody is invited, which is, can 5G be considered a very high capacity network for the Commission and generally under the future framework? Philippe, you want to take the baton here?
I try to understand the question. So what's the possible challenge of 5G MBMS?
No, this is the one about can 5G be considered a very high capacity network for the Commission? It was more.
I think with the current BEREC guidelines, there is little doubt that under appropriate implementation parameters, 5G networks can, and especially in the future, qualified as VHCN. But it all depends on how a particular implementation is conducted, of course. It's not that the case today that all 5G, and on the contrary, today's 5G that we see, like in the US, it's usually 20% faster than 4G and no fundamental shift at the moment. But the bases are there for this full substitution. Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. Simon and Attilio, do you want
to? I think the the question is really backhaul again. We come back to well, backhaul and range. In other words, the actual throughput is going to be throttled by that. And in other words, 5G is a dependent case. It depends on the context of the environment that it's in. If you have fast enough backhaul, then obviously it could be a very high capacity network. What is the range depends on what frequency you're using. So to some extent, that will also be important. So you have to look at the context of whether you're looking at low range, but at a high frequency, which in theory could give you much higher capacity. However, this is what's called in America the raw bandwidth problem. In other words, is it better to substitute computing power for raw bandwidth? You use much better codification, and there are new MPEG protocols, shall we say, that are around that squeeze much more out of a channel with the same capacity. And so Shannon's law of communications is being stretched, and certainly people like China Mobile are very interested, and they've been working on that since I think 2016, on how you go to a very high capacity network, whatever that may be, using existing kit.
Thank you. Any Attilio, final word on this?
Yes, final word is very connected to the slide that I showed before. No, we think that if you have a basket of frequencies and you have the support, as Simon said, of also the fiber of network that can be a strong core infrastructure, you can, from the point of offering, you can segment all the use cases and the business case to maximize the value of 5G. No? In my slide, previous slide, I show you how we can put the different services in the different frequencies area supported by the core. So I think that it depends from the context, as Simon and Philippe said, but if you have these two ingredients, you can manage at best all the needs of the market.
Thank you very much. And I think we kind of like coming to a closure. We went over 5 minutes. I think Pierluigi, maybe you want to close. I just wanted to thank Simon, Philippe, and Attilio for the very interesting presentation and discussion. And I think questions keep coming in, but unfortunately, we have to conclude. So I just would like to thank you very much. Thank all the panelists and remind them that the next webinar in the series is about IoT and is next Thursday. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Arrivederci.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Arrivederci.